Hey, I'm Mark,
And I'm Chris.
and we're the leftovers.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
I did not agree to that.
Hey, Chris,
Mark.
how about we talk about perception today?
All right.
You ever stop and wondered, depth perception, people perception? You ever sit around and wondered about perception?
Wondering about everybody else's perception of myself and
That's a good one.
the world around me.
Wondering what other people are perceiving as well. That's a good one. I was thinking about perception whenever we started to talk about this, 8 weeks ago.
What other people would perceive our
Well,
podcast like.
Just something like that. Perception you have of colors. All right. So if you see green, you would perceive that other people see the same color, right?
For the most part, yeah.
You would
But I
perceive
mean,
it.
there's colorblind people
Hello.
like yourself.
So I wonder when these greens, grays, browns that give me problems, what other people actually see. So when I see gray, because it's kind of like a dog, I just see, like if I see the color gray, I'm wondering in my mind instantly, do other people see green, brown? Who knows? So I'm perceiving gray, but I'm wondering what other people are perceiving that color to be. So there's a house on my way home, and they've just repainted it. And so someone asked me, "Hey, what about that house? You like that house?" And so my perception, that house is green. It's not.
Well, it also could be your perception that it looks good, while other people might think it looks ugly.
The house?
The color, or even the layout, or the way it looks.
Whenever I think about my color issues, we'll call them, I think that is something that I don't have control of. It's just what it is. It is what it is. But as far as how something looks, if it's the right shape, angle, layout, that's all subjective. That's all perception, if you will. How I perceive versus how you perceive,
Because I can see something all completely different than you,
Yes,
which we do quite a bit.
quite a bit. So, perception. You know what perception is, Chris? I looked it up.
Give me the definition.
I can be honest. This is something I looked up. The ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through your senses. There you go. Did that tell you anything? The ability to see, that's the first one we were talking about, seeing, and how I perceive colors versus apparently how you perceive colors may be different. Probably is on the rest of these as well, but when we think about perception of color, that's perception of how I see something versus how you see something. And just so happen I come up with color blindness or color alterations or color, ever what they're calling it today.
I've always just been taught it's color blindness.
It's probably not PC to say that nowadays.
I don't care about PC, but that's a whole nother.
I perceive that you do care about what people think PC wise. I think you really do. We'll get to that.
I mean, we can talk about it now if you want.
We're on perceive. I perceive that. We'll just leave it. We'll leave it right there for the minute.
All right.
Okay. So perception, how we see things first and foremost. Seeing, I talked to a man years ago, and I'll have to watch how I say this seriously. But he perceived to see a hillside, if you will. Okay? That hillside was not actually there. He walked right into it. And so he perceived a hill, rocks and grass and things that you would see on a hillside. Yet, walked right through it. So his
Perception versus
perception,
reality.
his perception it was right. He saw a hill, but when he got to it, it was not a hill at all. So our perception of things can be altered on the spot. It don't have to be altered over time. It can be altered right there.
Well, it can be altered, but I think in that situation though, that's more of an example of perception versus reality. How we see things, because we can see things 8 different ways, but it doesn't mean anything if it's not what it actually is. Because he could see a hillside,
He did.
but when he tried to walk up it, he walked through it.
Walked in it. Yep.
Walked in it. So there goes the perception versus reality. The reality of the situation is it was not there, even though he could see it.
Yes. Your eyes, what we're talking about.
We're talking
your
about
perception to
but
see.
At the same time, though, it's also like witnessing a crime or something. I see things from my vantage point.
Yes.
Where I'm at, where I'm standing, I can perceive something happening one way, and then somebody that's on the exact opposite side of the street can be perceiving it a different way.
And will be.
Yeah.
That's why they want a lot of witnesses. Let's get as many angles
people
as we can. So, perceiving things. Do you ever consider, or have you considered? I know you said you have a brother and a sister, and yourself. Did you ever perceive your parents to be a certain way, and then when you got older, maybe even when you had children, you perceived them a whole other way? So let's say 8-year-old Chris is perceiving my mom, your own mom, not my mom, perceiving your mom a certain way. Maybe you thought she made homemade cookies, and you come to find out later they're not homemade. That's generic as everything, but you see what I'm saying. You
It's
get
like the
older.
Friends episode where Phoebe thinks that her mom was making scratch or cookies, and it was a family recipe, but it ends up it's just on the back of the chocolate chip.
I remember that. I like that episode.
She perceived it as her mom's special recipe.
Yes.
But it was just the regular recipe that was on the back of
the back of the box. So, do you perceive your parents one way? And I guess everybody does when you think about it. Because 8-year-old Chris versus 18-year-old Chris, 2 different people. Your perceptions have changed.
Well, I mean, I could even go from when I was in high school to after I had graduated and I got in the real world, perceiving that my parents wanted me to be a lot like my brother because they're telling me I need to do a lot of things like what my brother was doing.
But that's all they had to go off of.
Yeah. Not only that, but I mean, they just wanted the best for me, and it only took me 10 years to figure that out.
I think that's a common issue, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Because when you're a teenager, you perceive the world's out to get you.
Let's don't even talk about teenage years. Not only do I look at mine and think, wow, but I look at my kids now and think, wow. Just let them grow up. Let them get a little older.
It's like every generation is going to perceive that the generation after them had it so much worse.
That's how it works. Perceiving our parents a certain way. And all children are guilty of this. It's not wrong to do. You have to do that. When you perceive your mother, your father, maybe you're raised by aunt or uncle, grandmother, grandfather, that you have to perceive them a certain way. And then when you become their age, like if you remember your guardian when they were 27, 28, 29, that was an impressionable years for you. And so when you become roughly 27, 28, 29, a lot of your traits that you saw them do, you're going to be doing because you perceive them at that point to be good, to be a guardian, if you will. And when you get that age, that's kind of what you're going to be doing. It's not going to be exact,
Well, it's like your child has a perception of you as this big person that knows everything. You're the one who's.
I wish.
You're basically their world when they're little.
When they're little, yes.
When they're little, that's what I'm going on.
Oh,
with.
yes.
It's like my little ones.
Yes, they think you know everything.
And then when they finally start growing up and learning that
You know
mommy
nothing.
and daddy don't know a whole lot.
And that's a thing. It really is a thing. That when your kids get to the point to realize, my mom and dad are just humans. They're not superheroes. They're just humans trying to learn how to raise me. Hopefully, at that time in your life, you're really understanding and glad that they got you as far as they did.
Well,
Hopefully,
it's like when everybody. I'll put myself like when I met my. I guess I won't call him an idol.
Who's your idol? Jerry Lawler?
No.
Hulk Hogan?
We'll go off this. Like, my uncle was a coach for the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
One of the players was somebody that I was like, I want to be like them. I want to be like them. And then I met him in real life and realized that they're not as cool.
So your perception of him
They're
early on,
hero, not their. That's what I was going to go with.
hero. Do you want to be like that guy?
Yeah.
Your perception was, I want to be like that guy, but real life said no. Right?
Well, I mean, it just after meeting him and realize it's like they say, never meet your hero, because you put these people on this pedestal.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then when you actually meet them and realize they're just as human, and so it brings
just got
it
more
down
money.
a few pegs.
Just got more money.
Yeah. Can I have some of it?
Please. Perception. That's what we're talking about. Perception. I did a little more research. That is, what are the factors that influence our perception? What are the factors that influence our perceptions? One, attitude. So, if you witnessed a crime at a store, you were at the Circle K getting a drink, and you witnessed a crime in the parking lot. Okay, so when you walked into the Circle K, you were ill, rough day at work, wife yelled at you, kids are screaming, electric bill due, and money short. Boy, you're ill. This is an ill time. You go into the Circle K, you get you a slushie, whatever they have, and you witness a crime in the parking lot out there. So you're ill. You're in an upset mood. Your perception of that crime is going to be a little different. Maybe you could care less. I don't care that lady's getting money stolen out of her purse because I'm ill, and maybe I want the money for my electric bill. I don't know. So your attitude, you're like, I don't care about anybody else's situation. If they're stealing, let them steal, whatever. I don't care, because your attitude is influencing your perception of a crime taking place versus you being in a great mood. You just got a raise at your job. You just walked into the Circle K. Your wife just sung praises to you out in the parking lot. Your kids are smiling or maybe asleep, and you're
That's
just
the only time.
you're just in a wonderful mood, and you witness a crime taking place. Now, you might act a little differently toward that crime. Maybe you call 911. Maybe you yell out, stop, or whatever. So your attitude, and I'm working towards something here. Your attitude really makes a difference in your perception. So your attitude changes your perception.
Oh, most definitely. Just it's like you were saying, depending on how mad or happy or sad or whatever your view on life that day, whether everything's going perfectly swimmingly or if things are just awful, and that your perception can also, in that case of your attitude, can rub off on other people and make their day be perceived as terrible as well.
Most definitely. Smile goes a long way. Giving someone a smile in the morning could just change their whole
Or a
day.
hug, or kiss your wife before you leave, or girlfriend, or
significant
other, whatever you want to call it.
All right. Your expectations can change your perception. When you lay out a situation in your head and you've got a preconceived notion of what's going to take place. Maybe you're going for a job interview and in your mind you're already there. It's already a no. They're not going to hire you. When you get there, and which I think the majority of that kind of thing is taking place on the internet nowadays. But let's just say old school. You show up to the front door, you're doing some paperwork, and you're thinking the whole time, this is not going to work. They're not going to hire me. I'm underqualified. They don't like me, whatever. I'm too short.
I don't know anybody that works here.
I'm the only one, right? Nobody's going to like me. And so you're filling out the paperwork. Here's my name. I really don't want to write it down. Here's my address. I'm just not happy with this. And even if they call you back and be like, hey, you have an opportunity, we might hire you. In your mind, you're still, your expectation of that job is already super low. So you are already a step lower than you ought to be versus you going into the same situation. And in your mind, hey, they're going to hire me. I'm the next one, whatever. And that's me. I've got that job. You go into that deal with a good perception of what's going to take place. Even if you were not able to get the job, either way, good mood or the expectation was low, high or low. At the end of the day, wouldn't you rather go into that with great expectations, or is that a letdown? I don't know. It's just a thought.
Well, in both of the examples for attitude and expectations of, say, getting the job or whatever, you can act differently, even though you can perceive something one way, but act a completely different way. I mean, there's people that do it every day, like servers at a restaurant can be having a terrible day.
That's a good example.
But they've changed their attitude. They've changed let me rephrase that. I won't say that they changed their attitude, but they've put on a front like they think everything's okay.
Just because they do that in the restaurant,
so that everybody else can perceive.
People do that every day.
Yep.
Every day. They put on a good face and show up to work and, hey, everything's great, but it's not. Difference is in the restaurant, they're working for tips. Yep. Everyday life, we're just working.
But I mean, you and I can both use this towards this podcast.
Yep.
We have our perceptions on how it's going or how it can views. Go. I wish.
Or listens.
we can have our perception on not only how this is going, but how we want it to go. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've just got to give it our best and hope for the best, no matter what our expectation or attitude is towards it, what our perception is.
What about your interest? Do your interest change your perception?
Oh, most definitely.
So if you're interested in puzzles. Puzzles. Do you like puzzles, Chris?
I don't, which is why I'm going to change it.
I hate puzzles.
I have an interest in a music artist.
Yes.
And they get in trouble.
Shania Twain.
Fine, Shania Twain. Okay. Say you're in love with Shania Twain.
Not in love with her. You just like her music. Let's chill that out.
You're in love with her. Don't worry.
Let's just say her music is good.
Say she does. Say there's something that happens because of your interest. You're gonna perceive that she didn't really do it.
She didn't really do it. Mm-hmm.
It's not something she would do.
Yep.
But then the video comes out and she was the one who did it.
But you would keep on that. No, she really didn't. Maybe make up excuses for her or something. You see that all the time in the sports industry. Sports industry. No, that's my guy. He didn't do that. I mean,
you see it everywhere, whether it's in the church, whether it's in politics, whether it's in sports. You see it everywhere. People's interests or the people that they like, they perceive them as being better than everyone else.
Or the opposite side of that.
Or the opposite side of it.
I'm not a LeBron supporter. And so when they sing the praises of LeBron, it's hard for me to agree. Although, he's scoring 35 a night and 12 rebounds, I'm still like, nah, he couldn't do that in the 90s. I'm instantly, because I'm not interested in LeBron James, but he's still scoring. He's still playing at an older age than the majority of the NBA has ever played. So, at the end of the day, when I stop and reflect, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, you're not going to get any fight from me on that. I don't like LeBron either.
You can use anybody.
Well, I mean, okay. Here's an example you and I both that we can use because we've had this discussion before.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying. You think his career is basically over
as a superstar,
a superstar running back,
mm-hmm.
and I believe that he can still be it.
Mm-mm.
See, we differ on because of our view on him.
Mm-hmm. My attitude, my expectation, my interest, I think is kind of close to yours on that, though. But
no, because I think he still has some superstardom in him. But that's just an example of from our own view,
from where we perceive it. So all these things affect our perception or influence our perception of things. Our attitude, our expectations, our interest, behavior.
Influence our perception.
Behavior. Influence our perception. Mm-hmm. Behavior. So kind of going along with attitudes, behavior. And so if you get up in the morning in an ill mood and you're just not, nobody's putting you in a good mood. You're upset with the dog. It's so bad. You're kicking the dog on the way out the door. It's not a good day. Your behavior is terrible. That's going to influence your perception of just about everything. But someone could smile at you at the local store. Somebody could be real nice to you that morning on a phone conversation or something, and it could change your whole behavior. And so your perception could change 180 degrees right there, just with someone getting nice with you. Mr. Chris, I also had wrote down here, you and I, and probably 100% of the people perceive other people, not judge them, mind you, perceive. Our perception of others, whether we see them every day, or maybe it's just a one-time encounter. Maybe you see a guy walking down the road, and maybe your instant perception is he's homeless, or he's up to no good, or his car's broke down. All these things are probably going through your mind because your perception of this guy, for me, if I see somebody walking down the road early in the morning, is I don't want to run over them. Look out. That's the very first one. But then all those other things go through my mind. Do they need help? Are they homeless?
Are they walking to work? Are they?
Yeah, that's usually way on down the list. Just being honest.
Yep.
But our perceptions of others is ongoing all the time. Our perception of other people in other cars as we pass them, or if we sit at the red light, what's this person over here up to? Are they in a good mood? Are they singing? How do we perceive other people?
Well, there's videos online on YouTube that I see them every once in a while. It's guys trying to find girls and trying to pick them up wearing these ratty clothes or with a terrible car or whatever. And so they make the girls perceive them as though they're just bums that don't have any money, don't try to look good.
I haven't heard of this one. Keep going.
But then next thing you know, they have a Lamborghini pull up, or they go in somewhere and change into this real nice clothing, and then the girl sees them like, ooh, I want to be with them. They're
Because
they're trying to find gold diggers,
yeah,
or they're making the videos up and just hiring these girls to act this way. But
that's your perception of
Yeah.
the stunts, whether they're real or not. So here's a little something. How can we improve our perception? Do you think you can improve your perception there, Chris? Or why should you? Maybe you ask. Why should I improve my perception? Right?
we shouldn't perceive. That's a good question. I don't
course
think we
it
should
is.
perceive the world as a terrible place,
No.
but there's a lot of times where you can feel like your attitude towards the world is that it's a terrible place, the people are bad, you expect people to be terrible to you. It just puts you in a bad place. And I mean, you perceive the world as a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad place. And that, I mean, just the perception on the world as a whole makes you act ways towards certain individuals, which doesn't help anything.
No, only hurts. So, on the list I was working on, how to improve one's perception, such as develop good listening skills.
What?
You don't know, huh? You don't, I guess you may know. It's hard to believe as many people do not have good listening skills as they do. Listening to someone is just as important as speaking to someone. Let them have their say and listen to what they say, and then you'll have a chance to talk.
That's going to be a hard one, though, because, I mean, you look at everything out in the world these days, that you're told to put yourself first, take care of yourself, do all this for yourself. You're not really, I mean, unless it's for a certain political or sports or religious thing, you're not really told to think about anyone else but yourself. And where you are, you do need to take care of yourself, but at the same time, we're a community. We got to take care of each other.
But you being a good listener is so important.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Is
Yes.
we're told to take care of ourselves. So in taking care of yourself, you don't really listen to what other people have to say. You just try to take whatever you feel best is for you.
You ever had a conversation with somebody and you just knew they were not listening to you? And you could say Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall in the middle of the sentence and they would never recognize it because they weren't listening. When these people show up, and some of them you know already, they don't listen, you just feel like the conversation's already over. There's no sense in saying anything of importance because they're not listening anyway. Why even say anything? So I try personally to listen to someone when they speak. My perception is they have something to say and they're worth listening to.
That's a hard one for me because
You're a good listener. You listen.
sometimes.
You listen.
I've got bad hearing, but I try to be a good
I
listener.
mean, your wife might say something different.
Oh, I
but
know
you-
for a fact my wife would say something different.
You seem to be a good listener.
I try,
Yeah.
but it's hard sometimes just because I try to take care of myself.
Do you perceive others, not yourself, do you perceive others listening to you well or not on the whole, for the most part?
And you just talking about in everyday life.
Yes.
Oh, I don't. My perception is people don't really care what I have to say.
Wow. Seriously.
No, seriously, because
Lay on the couch. Lay down.
lay down now. Well,
My perception of what you just said is not very good.
well, you should have perceived it as if I was laying down on your
Yeah.
therapist couch.
Where was I at? Listening skills.
No, you were letting me talk
Yes.
because
And I was listening.
I said that I perceive that people don't really care what I have to say.
And that's on a regular basis. That's how you think.
That's how I feel majority of the time. Just because, I mean, whether I go on Facebook and put something out there, or
By the way,
Facebook's not real life. Yeah, I know.
if you get a friend request from me, don't accept it.
Oh, so I shouldn't have accepted the 3 people that said they were you.
I can't even get into my own account.
But not just on Facebook, but I mean, just even in the real world, when I'm out there having, well, I say I'm out to dinner with people, they're in their own conversation. I try to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really hear me because they're already in that conversation with somebody else.
Right.
So
You feel in a conversation you're the smaller voice, sort of sound.
yeah.
And you, I mean, like I say, you're a good listener. It's not like you tune everybody out. Yes, I think you're a good listener. And to me, that's like head and heels over a majority of people. Someone that would listen. So you perceive right off in situations like that no one really want to hear what I got to say. No one cares what I have to say. But on the other side of that, do you not think with your perception of they don't really care what I have to say, you're already giving them the authority to not care what you have to say, right?
And I guess there's some truth to that, but at the same time, if people aren't good listeners, then
You have to make them listen.
I have to make you listen to me.
You have to say. You have to have one. You have to have something to say. 2, you've got to believe that it's worth saying. In your mind, off the get go, you've got to believe.
Is it worth saying and then having to listen to other people give their opinions on what you just said?
Yes, it's always worth saying. Always.
I wouldn't say it's always worth saying. There's plenty of things out there that are not
I would
worth
rather
saying.
hear me talk as anybody else. I mean, it's my perception.
I know you like to listen to yourself talk.
No,
But what I'm getting at though is not everybody should have the right to be heard, because there's people
Really?
out there.
I
Yeah.
don't agree with that. Everybody deserves to be heard. Some.
So in America, the law is the right to free speech.
Mhm.
You can talk to your blue in the face to a fence post for all I care.
Yep.
If you're spouting racist things.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there spouting racist things, you have the right all day
Yep.
to sit there and speak to that fence post or whatever. But that, to me, you don't have the right to spout those terrible things
But I
or
mean,
be heard.
there's consequences for it. What you say.
Yeah.
You say stupid, then you're going to have to pay for stupid. I think, right?
But that goes back to the point of not everybody should have the right to be heard.
That's up to the listener, whether they have the right to be heard or not.
And then there goes with people not listening very good because they think everybody's just spouting terrible things.
Mm-hmm. Good listening skills. That's one way we can improve our perception. Another way is to be aware of stereotypes. What does that mean, you say?
I didn't say that. I know what a stereotype is.
I think it was in your mind. I was reading your mind.
Please
I've got that
get out of my
I've
head.
got that ESPN.
Please get out of my head.
Be aware of stereotypes. So, this is to help improve your perception of others. How can you improve your perception? And one is to be aware of stereotypes. So, if you know that, for instance, if you know people perceive in your neighborhood the Confederate flag to be racist, you know that's a thing. So why would you have it in your yard unless you just want to upset folks? It's history, it's not hate, right?
They perceive it as their property, and they can fly it if they feel like it. They perceive it as something that's not a hateful symbol, or they might.
I wonder that, though. Is it on the flagpole because they do want their history shown, or is it to where they want the rider's spy to be upset? I wonder.
That majority of the time, I think people fly the Confederate flag just to piss people off.
That's, for lack of better
that's
words,
my perception.
I think you're right. Well, you just need to be aware of that.
But therein lies my perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas,
so if me and you agree on something, then that has to be the way everybody else thinks, right? No. But at least you and I see eye to eye. A
lot of people try to hang out with a bunch of people. Most people try to hang out with other people that have the same perceptions on life as them. Majority of people don't go, like, you don't see a Christian and a Satanist hanging out all the time because they don't perceive the world the same. I mean, they can hang out. That's why I said most.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
I think it's very healthy to hang out with
people of differing views.
Yes. Thank you for not listening, but talking.
Okay, you could say it.
I'm just kidding.
No, but I mean,
yeah, I think it's very healthy. But you're right. Majority of people want to be with what? People who believe, think, look just like themselves.
People who perceive the world the same they do.
Same way. And that's easy. That is easy to do.
That is easy.
Mm-hmm.
The hard thing is finding things that you agree with, or people that you agree with on some things, but the majority of things you don't agree with.
Mm-hmm. You know what the Bible says? It's easy to love those just like you. It's easy to love those that love you, right? But you got to love those that hate you.
And that's the hard part.
That's why everybody don't do it.
People that want to see you die.
So a good way to improve your perception is self-reflection. Think about that for a second. Self-reflection. Spend time alone. Understand who you are. This will give you a great perception of others. So when you sit down at night to reflect on your day, what's went on today, this week, and maybe you have a prayer time, maybe you have a time with the family, and you get to reflect on, okay, Tuesday of this week, I cursed someone out. I shouldn't have, but I did.
No, you shouldn't have.
No, you
shouldn't. It hurt my feelings.
Got him. Or Wednesday, I yelled at somebody for running a red light.
There again, you hurt my feelings.
You need to straighten up.
I do.
But if we reflect on our good and our bad individually, I believe that will give our perception of others an opportunity. Preconceived, like I said originally, if you went into the Circle K ill because maybe you didn't have self-reflection, maybe it's just evil, bad, negative, all this is going on. And so when you sit down at night, afternoon, early morning, whenever it happens, and reflect on yourself and how you can improve, how you can do better than you did last week. I think this not only helps you, but it helps others. It helps the way you perceive others by improving you, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier-ish. Chris, I had an idea there. That is, people react to their own perceptions.
Yes.
Example. If someone believes their wife is an adulterer, in their mind, she already is, right? In their mind, whether she did or not. But it's in their mind. Their perception is she has laid with another man.
I guess you could say that.
I just did.
My problem is perception versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
The reality to that, though, is maybe she didn't.
Maybe she did, maybe she didn't.
But if you set it up in your head as she did, how do you get away from your own mind?
That's a good question because
What I'm here for.
everybody has problems with that these days.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's in their head is what they believe is true, and nothing else can be different than what they believe.
So if you perceive that your children are drinking beer, maybe you don't have any concrete evidence, but it's in your mind, would you, and I know your kids are way too young for this, but you can imagine in the future, maybe you perceive them to have done something and nobody can tell you any different. It's just, that's the way it is because it's in your mind that way. And they're telling you, I didn't do it, Dad. Wasn't me. No, wasn't me. The old Eddie Murphy effect, wasn't me. I didn't do it. Not me. Not the kid.
Well,
me.
There's that song by Shaggy. That's what it is.
Shaggy.
Yeah, wasn't me. That
I think
entire
that comes from Eddie
song.
Murphy.
That entire song is him saying, "Oh, what you saw wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
You caught this person doing it. It wasn't me.
Yep.
Even though it really was them."
Yep.
Or everybody that's in prison. Oh, I didn't commit this crime.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It was that other guy down the road.
Because I think you can talk yourself into or out of a lot of things. In your mind. I didn't do it. I really didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. After so much time of that, you didn't do it, but you did do it, right?
Well, not only that, but you can change your perception as, oh, I did it, but I did it for the right reasons. What I did for the right reasons wasn't wrong.
Right. You talked yourself into, I ran that stoplight because it changed from yellow to red too fast, right? It shouldn't have been set that quick. That's just set to get people a ticket. So I've convinced myself, even if you're not 100 yards up the road, you've convinced yourself you had a reason to run that red light.
Oh, I'm late to work. I'm just going to run through this red light real quick. I'm not going to stop at the stop sign. I'm not going to follow the speed limit. I'm going to go as fast as I need to get to where I need to on time.
That's your perception, and you've talked yourself into it.
We make excuses so that we can perceive like we haven't done anything wrong, even though reality might be
you done everything wrong. You done it all wrong.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I don't do that. I'm very guilty of that myself.
Yeah, I've seen you driving.
Shut up. Everybody is guilty of changing their perception to make them feel better, even though reality is they've done wrong.
So what if you know someone whose perception is off, always off? Everybody has a day. But what if someone you know, a friend, loved one, a hated one, a coworker, whatever it is, what if you know someone's perception is just off all the time?
Don't get me started on politics here.
Let's stay closer to home than Washington, D.C.
No, it's not Washington, D.C.
It's every state that don't agree with me.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
kind of is. That's my perception.
My perception is abortion's wrong. There's people out there that don't think it's wrong. They don't perceive it as a child dying.
Right.
They perceive that you can change your gender. Even though...
And you can. It's an option.
Even though myself and science has said that you can't really do that.
Right. And that's your perception.
Well, that's why I threw in there my perception and science, so they agree with each other.
You had to throw science in there, didn't you?
Yep.
So my question was, what if you know someone's perception is always off? What do you do?
Call them a Democrat.
Do you confront them? Question mark.
Not these days. These days, if somebody wants to be wrong, just let them live.
Or do you comment on their lack of perception, of good perception? Because they got a perception one way or another, but it's just constantly
Wrong.
bad.
And it's just
Do you say something to them?
maybe once or twice, but if they want to live in their delusion, you can't
Just
really
let 'em.
stop them unless they're hurting somebody.
Yeah. And I guess by having a expectation or perception is not really hurting anybody per se, but yeah. Do you think our perception defines who we are?
Definitely, the way you perceive the world is it. The way you perceive the world tells. How do I say this?
With your mouth,
Shut up.
not with your feet,
Well,
not with your ears, with your mouth.
so when you perceive the world a certain way, you act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will be able to tell how you perceive things by the way you act.
Mm-hmm. You're an outward reaction of your perception.
Took me a minute to get there, but I got there.
You did get there. So you're saying if you perceive a I really don't want to talk about politics. I just don't. I don't enjoy it. I don't like my side or the other side or the middle side, or I just don't like talking about it.
Well, we're
I
gonna
was
get
trying to
we're gonna get a
think.
little bit off topic here, and
Yeah.
I'll probably have to cut it out.
It's okay. It
But-
happens.
When it comes to politics, you kind of have to talk about it at some point, because politics, when it comes from the national or even local, it affects you. Whether it's them saying that, oh, you have to have some gay pride flag in your window. If we don't stand up for what we believe in, last episode, then they're just going to run all over us. If we don't stand up and fight for it and try to change other people's minds.
Your perception.
My perception is if we allow people to go out there and believe things that are not correct just to make them feel better about something, it's going to cause us to be in a very bad place.
As a country?
As human beings. I mean, we're already seeing ramifications from this transgender stuff. People didn't really speak up and do anything until it started affecting a lot of people. I mean, there are children that are at the youngest, I think they've found, is 9 years old, are 9-year-olds that will never be able to have kids. Okay. Well,
What about say?
do you know how good sex feels? There are children now that when they become of age to do that will not have any sensation from it. Literally, that kid Jazz from that TLC show I Am Jazz, it's a boy that they've let
Cher's daughter.
No. Jazz is a kid that from the age of 3 they've raised him to be a girl. Well, when she turned, I think it was 20 or 21, got him the surgery to get rid of his testicles and his penis and create a fake vagina. All that, I mean, other than making them feel like a girl,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're not, all that is a hole for a guy to stick his penis inside of. He's not gonna get any. He's not gonna get any relief or a endorphin sensation from that because there's no nerve endings in it. It's literally just a bunch of skin that they've sewn together to make a hole for a man to get pleasure out of.
So your perception is they should not have went through with all that. They, as in
The mother, the father, the
caretaker
person.
in the beginning, and then adult as that came to pass. You're saying that
My perception is
They
they
are
should
not-
have gotten the child help with their body dysmorphia from somebody that's not wanting to just cut up the child's body.
should have psychologically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Worked it out somehow.
Before, I think it was before 2020 or 2019.
Sure.
One of those years, the disease was literally called body dysmorphia. And because it became so prominent and so politically correct, body dysmorphia got turned into transgender. And now the problem isn't that they want to get rid of or add things to their body, it's that they don't feel like they're in the right body, so they have to change their body.
So do you perceive, again, what we're talking about, perception? Do you perceive that if someone changes their makeup or guy becomes a girl in looks only,
Or a girl becomes a guy.
every which way? I was just going to use one for an example. So you would see that situation. Now, what if nobody ever said anything about it? And you just saw a guy walking down the road, like we talked about earlier. Maybe you're on your way to work, guy walking down the road. Hey, how you doing? You didn't know anything about anything. You're perceiving that guy. Maybe he's walking to work. Maybe he's homeless. Maybe his car's broke down. So if you never knew anything about any of that, but still people are dressing like the opposite sex, trying to go out with the same sex. I don't even know how all that works. Okay. If all that's going on and you don't know the ins and outs of it, you would not have a perception on it, right? You'd just be like, we're just regular folks. Nobody's any different.
Well,
Nobody's
I mean,
changed.
We, for forever, was cross-dressers. There were drag queens, stuff like that. But they weren't saying that they're not a man. They were just saying that I like to wear these clothes. Now we're having people say that, oh, you have to accept me, and I believe that I'm a whatever.
But do you think that's actually that's the message? Is I was a woman, now I'm a man. You have to accept me.
That's literally the message.
You think? That's not really how I see it, but
Well, you're also not very political like me.
no.
I'm not very. I don't get into politics. I listen to political things because politics is starting to affect children. I mean, that's why the whole transgender thing actually got real big, was because, I mean, they're starting to force kids to accept transgenderism and gay pride and all this other stuff. They're forcing it on our kids. And, I mean, in all honesty, if they did not force this on the kids and it stayed a thing for adults only, that I don't think it would be as big of a deal. It would still be a deal, but it wouldn't be as big of a deal just because it's adults doing adult things adults can do adult things and whatever. Okay. When you start involving children, that's when people start getting angry.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I started listening to politics back before Trump got in office. But I really didn't start like really wanting to get my voice out until they started coming out with the things, the books in the schools, and what teachers are telling kids about how they were telling kids sexual things without the parents knowing, and it wasn't until COVID when.
But do you think that's rampant? You think that's just very small individual type instances?
No, I think it's. I don't think it's like fully nationwide, but I still think it's a big thing.
Hmm.
I mean, here in our area, they found books in elementary schools that was showing kids how to perform oral on each other.
Hmm. That doesn't need to be anywhere around any school.
No.
But, for years I've heard from the church I attend, they've took Jesus out of school. They've took Jesus out of school. Well, when my kids went through middle school, what was in their books? Jesus. They was teaching Christianity at public schools. They didn't do it when I was in the same school. So, for all the negative that we hear, there is positive going on. And for me, that's a positive. I'm going to imagine for somebody out there, having Jesus taught in school is not a good thing. And, all I can do is what I can do. So they also teach other religions as well. But Christianity is taught in middle schools, public middle schools. I think that's a great thing.
Just one or multiple?
Multiple. I know of as of a county it's taught. I can't say about statewide. I'm guessing, but I know as of a county it's taught.
No, because when I was in middle and high school, we didn't.
We didn't either. And so...
And I know of multiple people going to public school that they didn't have Christianity taught to them.
Mm-hmm. And, some of that, I believe, has to do with the teacher and how it's taught. So when and I forget how, maybe it's taught like history or I forget. It's been a minute.
Almost everything.
And so they're also teaching other religions as well. So depending on the teacher, how long they're going to stay on each section, that could have a lot to do with it. Their perception of what they want to get across.
I mean, even atheists have to somehow believe. I mean, this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values.
But was it?
It was. You're right.
Your perception?
Not really. Because thou shalt not kill is why murder is.
I mean, that's pretty easy one. No. Think about it.
Is it though? I mean,
it really is.
There's cannibalistic tribes in
but we're
Africa.
Not there.
We're not there.
We're right here. Your perception. If I told you
you're innocent until proven guilty,
that 2023 Chevrolet truck is ugly. Your perception could be, hey, that thing looks awesome, right? Right.
And your view can be that thing looks ugly.
Right. How do when you say that, that thing looks awesome. I love it. What goes through my mind? If I thought it was the ugliest thing ever, I'll use the 2023 Honda Accord.
Okay, good, because I thought you were going to use me as an example.
All right, so the 2023 Honda Accord, I think looks awesome. I love it. I think it looks great. You might see it and be like, it's a car. It's okay. Or the thing's ugly. They've made better, 20 years ago or something. And so in my mind, I'm using cars because it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. But in my mind, I instantly go to a place that's like, well, he don't think like I do. What's up with him? You know, and I'm an easygoing guy. For somebody to agree with me, not agree with me, really doesn't bother me. It's okay. You've got an opinion. I've got an opinion. We're all good. So when you say that car is ugly, or give its faults, I'm not really going to be upset. But instantly, when that's said, I'm like, well, he's different than me, And you can go on and use other things other than cars, but you might talk about new computers or
something you don't know anything about.
Something I know nothing about. If I turn them on and they work, we're good. If they don't work, I don't like them.
So you're saying whenever I tell you all the cool things about my computer, you don't care?
I know a little bit, enough, Perception, Chris.
Perception.
My perception of you interrupting me is not good.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Not really.
Happens.
I know. I'm cool. My perception is I'm cooler than you. It might be the wrong one, but...
Let me ask you this. When you're sitting in a church setting,
okay,
and you're hearing the pastor
preach,
and maybe you perceive what he's saying is not exactly what you think, do you instantly shut down and quit listening, or do you give him an opportunity?
You got to give him an opportunity to explain.
Really? What was said earlier, half the people aren't listening to other people anyway.
True. So
you would think in a church setting, maybe when the preacher says something you don't necessarily agree with, that maybe you shut down just everything else. He says, I'm not listening. He don't know what he's talking about. His perception's off. Maybe, right?
Yeah.
But you said you give him the opportunity.
I would, but I know there's plenty of people out there, though, that once something's said that they don't agree with or that makes them mad, they shut down and give the person no count anymore.
Yep. Been there and done that.
I mean, that happens in the real world, but I mean, you would think that in the church it wouldn't be that bad. But
you let a waitress forget to fill your sweet tea up at the right time and watch what happens. Your perception of her has just went down.
Well, I mean, you have people all that if somebody out in the real world does something wrong to them.
What's the opposite of that?
Someone in the world does something wrong to them?
No, the real world.
The opposite of the real world is your perception.
The unreal world.
No, because it's... I hate you. The difference is it's like whenever you're listening to people talk about something that happened, you have...
Such as?
Say like in a...
Are you eavesdropping, or are you in the conversation?
Go in a court battle.
Okay.
Someone is suing someone else because something happened. You listen to the plaintiff, you listen to the defendant. And the thing is the judge has to figure out what actually happened from their views, because what they say happened and what they said happened more than likely isn't what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
But there's things that both of them have said that can kind of, you can try to figure out what actually happened. So therein lies, you have one person's view, and the real world.
What if the person that's actually not guilty of anything, they're just not a good storyteller?
God bless them, man.
So if someone is in the middle of a situation, judge and jury kind of thing, plaintiff, defendant, and they're just not a good storyteller, and maybe the other person is, good storyteller. So is that, I guess that's why we have lawyers. Is that person going to be found guilty just because they can't tell a good story? Even though they're, let's say, not guilty.
I mean, there's plenty of people that are guilty just because people view the world. Like, that's the whole thing about jury selection, is you're trying to find people that will agree with you on most things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not looking for people that'll find the truth. You're just trying to find people that think the same or believe the same things.
Mm.
Because everybody sees the world a different way, and they don't.
You want people that look at it like you do.
Yeah, you don't really care if they see the law as it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Just want them to look at it like you do.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like the case in New York with the guy that choked out the black guy on the subway.
Mm.
The black guy he choked out was going around telling people he was gonna kill them and all this other stuff, and the guy that's being charged thought that the best thing to do is subdue the man, and so he put him in a chokehold. They let him up. They put him in the recovery position. He was still breathing, and it wasn't until he was on his way to the hospital that he died.
Mm.
Well, since it happened in New York, and a lot of New Yorkers think the same, it's highly unlikely that this guy is going to get off on the charges, even though...
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
So the guy that got choked out and killed...
Okay.
So the perception was that he was going around telling folks. Is that right?
No, the perception isn't that he was that's the thing though. Reality is he was going around and threatening to kill people,
but he didn't.
No.
Okay.
The guy who's been arrested stepped up and subdued him from being able to do anything until the authorities got there.
Mm. And so this went to court?
He's going to court now.
Mm.
He was just... So after it happened, he went in with the police and they let him go. Well, the district attorney for that area is trying to think of the word I want to say.
Lawyer.
He is a lawyer.
Attorney.
He is an attorney with
practicing attorney
views that I don't really think are good for our country or even that city. And he's decided that the man who subdued the guy that died deserves to be put in prison for murder.
But that'll be up to a jury.
Yes, and because of where the jury is at, he's probably not going to get a trial of people that agree that what he did was wrong.
You know, I find that amazing. That
or what he did was right.
Same situation. You could have every how many jurors you have that think like you or not could tell whether you spend the rest of your life in jail
or not another day,
or killed, or you're free.
Yeah.
That's amazing for me to think about. That
well, I mean,
it's all about jury selection.
That's every court battle.
Yeah.
But I mean, where do we go if we can't trust the community around us?
Yeah.
Leave it up to a computer. A computer doesn't know everything.
No. I guess we just try to stay out of those situations best way we can. Do you remember the Rodney King episode back in the 90, 91, something?
Wasn't Rodney King where he was a truck driver?
No.
No.
He was driving a Yugo.
I don't know. What
or some little nothing car.
They pulled him out and beat him to death?
Yeah. Well, he lived. He didn't
he
kill
lived.
it. Didn't kill him. But the officers who were responsible for that were acquitted, and then that causes the LA riots and a mess.
Yep.
So perception is everything. How you like when that happened, there were people that were tried to at the water cooler kind of thing, water cooler talk. That was legit. That he deserved it. They should have drug him out of his car and kicked him and hit him and in handcuffs. That was a necessary thing. Their perception was that it was okay. But
it wasn't right.
There's nothing right about it.
But that's where I come in with. Everybody has their perception, but then there's the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could have, I guess, talked yourself into. Well, Joe said it was okay, so maybe I agree with Joe because Joe's the boss, and he's got all the money, and so I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, he deserved it. He was speeding. He was drunk. He needed to be kicked and whipped and. Yeah. So a lot of times our perception is who we perceive to be a higher up person in the community, and you're just going to go along with them because they know more than I know. They're smarter than I am, your perception says, which is not right at all.
Or reality can just be that they're willing to stand up and fight for something they believe in, and you're just a follower.
You're just going along. That's
and
right.
we've got millions of people in this country that's the exact way that they are.
Some people's personality just lead them to be a follower. It's going to be very difficult for them to get out of that.
Their personality leads them to be a follower.
Yes. It's going to be very difficult for them to be anything else.
Yep.
Because it's very comfortable to be a follower.
Yeah, because when you're a follower, what can they get mad at you for?
You're right. It's always their fault.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see that. So, yeah. Perception's everything, Chris. Or is it?
It's not really everything. I've heard that saying my whole life. Perception is everything.
That's why I said it.
But the problem of the matter is perception is not everything.
It's a lot.
We need to look at reality. We have too many people right now that are stuck in their own perception and
stuck in the mud
and not paying attention to reality. And that's just going to lead us further and further away from
goodness.
Yeah, being good. But I guess that's a perception thing too, being good and bad. Because everybody perceives what is good and
what's bad.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right, well, we'll try to do this again another time.
Yes, we will.
Have a good one.